What if I told you that most people who fail at growing their own seedlings from home don't fail because they can't grow plants? It's because they let the business and legal requirements scare them away before they even start. In today's video, I'm going to help you step by step go through your state, local, and farmers market based requirements that might be necessary for you to start selling the seedlings that you grow from home. By the end of this video, we're going to move past that business legal stuff. We're going to cover it, but we're going to go right into what your profit potential is, how to look at your growing space, and how to start to think about keeping track of your business. By the end of this video, you're going to have thought about everything from business and legal compliance perspectives all the way to profit so that you know what you need to do to have your business set up and what the possibilities could be for your business. So if that sounds good to you, let's get going.
Okay, so let's get right into it. This slide says how to create your own business tracker. The whole thing that we're going to do together today is going to encompass a business tracker, but we're going to first start talking about the business and legal setup that you need to have in order for your business to be compliant. And I want to show you how to research those things for yourself. And so we're going to talk about business and legal requirements predominantly as it relates to any kind of permits, any kind of state requirements, like any of the business requirements that your state might have from an agricultural perspective regarding what you're doing. So I have to tell you that this is legal. This is not legal advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a lawyer. This is not meant to be all of your legal advice. This is not meant to be any of your legal advice. So again, this is for entertainment purposes only. If you want to get legal advice on this, I would consult an attorney. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about, let me present this to you so we see it. All right. So we're going to create your own business tracker. We're going to go through all the details of that. It's going to be the 4 pillars. There are 4 pillars that we're going to cover. We are going to talk about legal and compliance, how to operate legally where you live. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you exactly what the rules are for your area, but I'm going to show you how to look it up, and we're going to do it together. It's not going to be scary, none of that business. I find that people get really freaked out about this stuff and that you really don't need to. In a lot of cases, most states are somewhat reasonable about this. A lot of municipalities are reasonable about this. They have some limits for you. For example, you don't need any kind of license from the state perspective if you only sell a certain amount or if you only sell vegetable seedlings. That's the case where I live. So your rules will vary for you, but I'll show you what to look for. We'll talk about what you should look for and how to find that for yourself. So that's the legal and compliance. I want to start that off first, get it out of the way. You don't have to wait for the whole video. We're doing that first. Second is the financial foundation. Do you know your true costs that it's going to take for you to operate? Do you know what your expenses are so that you can incorporate them into a per seedling cost that makes sure that you're making money for everything that you do? In this particular type of business, you need to make a profit for 1 seedling in order for you to make a profit for 100 seedlings, if that makes any sense. There's not going to be any kind of I'm generalizing here, but there's not going to be any sort of benefit to you saying, oh, well, the first 10 seedlings that someone buys are pretty much free, but then, the more they buy, that's not how this works for you. It's a small business and I want you to be successful up front. So we're going to talk about true cost and how to figure that out for you and for your setup. Number 3, what is your physical setup? What do you have? What do I recommend that you get? How are you going to be able to maximize your space? And then business systems. How are we going to keep our business systems as simple as possible while you're tracking what you need to be tracking? So after you watch this video, you will know how to research what permits and licenses you actually need. This does vary by state, but there are some ways to go about looking for this information that if you go through each of these steps, you're going to have it covered. Then you'll learn the equipment assessment system that will keep you from wasting money on equipment. You will be investing money in the right type of equipment, the right size equipment. You'll know what you need and you can make your own educated decisions. You'll learn my approach to maximizing my growing space under grow lights. Again, there are certain sizes that are beneficial to go for when it comes to seedling size and then when you're potting up and that kind of thing. And we'll talk about all those. And then the profit worksheet is going to show you exactly what's possible for you based on all of these things. So let's hop into this. Now we're going to start with legal and compliance planning. This is the legal stuff that people can't talk about. They don't really, it's not easy to share with folks how to do this because everybody's in a different place. But we'll talk about this. Let's go. We've got state requirements. Now those are your overarching requirements. Those are going to cover you for whatever state you're in. So if you are researching this, now we're going to take a look at it and I'm going to Google your state's information and I'm going to put home business requirements in there. Okay. Then after I do Google, once I Google your state name and then we go home business requirements for that state, then we're going to take it a step further and I'm going to check your state agricultural department website and we're going to start searching for home business seedling or home business nursery requirements. We want to be looking for nursery and agriculture. Now we're selling vegetable seedlings. We're not talking about patented, we're not taking cuttings of patented roses that are still under their patent because that is not legal. You cannot do that. So we're talking about veggie, annual vegetable seedlings. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about super expensive patented seedlings or taking cuttings of plants that are covered under a patent. That's not what this is about, okay? So if that's what you want to do, this is not me telling you that you can do that because that's not most likely not covered, but you'll have to figure that out if you want to take cuttings of stuff. This is just growing veggie starts from seeds that are commercially available and not covered under a patent. So that is what we're going to do. Then I want you to see, I'm going to show you some examples a little bit later of showing you how to find cottage food laws. I don't think cottage food laws are applicable for you though, because this is not food that people are eating. It will grow into food that they eat. So you don't have to worry about cottage food laws. What you have to worry mostly about is your state agricultural requirements and whatever your state home business requirements are. Those are the two major things you should look at if you are looking to do this type of thing. Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. Now, this is the Seedling business planner that I came up with. I've got a few tabs here across the bottom. You'll see here that the first thing we look at is legal and compliance planning. Number one, you're going to look up, is a state business license needed? And then you're going to input yes or no here. Okay, if the answer is yes, then you are going to research who you need to talk to learn about that, find out about it. If there are certain rules that govern let's say that you don't need a business license unless you hit a certain level of revenue, put that in the notes here for yourself so that you don't lose track of it. Most of the time, a lot of times states will say, as long as your revenue is less than 10,000 a year or 20,000 a year or 5,000 a year, or whatever it is, a state business license isn't needed. Now, that goes the same for county permits. You're going to look up your county information and you're going to first look at your county extension office. Your county extension office is a really good place to look for exactly how you can sell seedlings. They would know. As a matter of fact, my local extension office has their own seedling sale, and they sell perennials and annuals from seed and whatnot. So they would be a really good place for you to look for that. Then you're going to also want to look for your city and town requirements, and I have this listed here, and you're just going to go through this for yourself and fill it out. And then also you're going to see if there are city and town requirements. Take down the contact name of your extension office agent. A lot of times they will be very helpful for you when it comes to interpreting soil tests or even getting soil tests for your land if your state does that. I happen to live in a state, North Carolina, that does do that. They offer very reasonably priced or even free soil tests through the extension agency or the extension agent. So get get really comfortable with them because they're a really good resource and a good people to know. So, in the legal compliance tracker, do you need a state business license? Do you need a county permit? Do you have city requirements or town requirements if you don't? Or is it county? Like, if you don't live in a city or town, if you live kind of like out in the middle of nowhere where I grew up, then you have county rules that will govern what you can do. Is insurance needed? And then for farmers markets, if you have specific farmers markets that if you have specific farmers markets that you want to go to, what do they require? Sometimes they will have their own specific requirements, or they'll let you waive the requirements if you fill out a form. So find that out, put that down in your little tracker that you've got, and it's going to be great. And you're going to have everything that you need. So I have a few pro tips for you for this. Go ahead and start this process now. Just because someone requires that you have a permit doesn't mean you should stop the process. A lot of people, they're like, well, if there's a permit requirement, then I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have to get a permit. So here's the thing. Find out what the permit costs. Find out what kind of information you need to share to get the permit, and then decide if the permit's worth it. Chances are really good that the permit is worth doing if you're not going to do it if you don't have a permit. So you need a permit to do it, and if you look into it and you find out, oh, permit's 15 bucks, it'll take you 3 weeks. I understand like sticking it to the man and not wanting to do it. But if that's all that stands in the way of you and a profitable seedling sale, just do it, right? Like, I don't know. You do what you do, but I'm telling you that I think it's worth it. So just because a permit's required, I just there's a strange sort of mentality that people have when you say, "Oh, you've got to have a permit." Oh, guess I can't do that. Like you can. You just have to get the permit. So cool, cool. So I want you to document everything, save the emails, use your tracker, use your Seedling business planner to track all the responses that you get or the conversations that you have, just so that you're aware of what's going on with it. Now let's take a look at the Seedling business planner, and we're going to go through all of that legal compliance stuff that I showed you, and I'll show you how to keep track of it all. Okay, here we go. Real quick. You have sat with me through the rest of that presentation, and so now I'm going to move myself over. Here we go. So we've got, this is just a basic Google spreadsheet. Across the bottom here, we've got a few tabs. Inside of this spreadsheet, you'll see the questions that we mentioned for each of the pillars that we discussed. And the name of this is a Seedling Business Planner. So for legal and compliance, is a state business license needed? Do you need county permits? So the things you're going to remember about this is looking for your agricultural, home nursery requirements. Does it require a license to sell seedlings in whatever state you're in? Just Google that and see where you are, and then take notes here based on what you find. Are there county permits required? Yes or no? If so, who's the person you want to talk to about that? And then you can take notes here as to what the outcome of those conversations were. Are there city or town requirements where you live? Is there any kind of specific insurance that's required? Like lots of people will say, oh, it's a good idea to have E&O and liability insurance and blah, 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 but it's not required, right? So like it depends on whether it's required for you. So farmers market permits, if there's a specific farmers market that you're interested in, take a look at their requirements on their website. Also look into your HOA restrictions if you're selling from a home and you live in an HOA, and then tax registration, what tax registration is needed in your area. So this is a planner that you can sort of write all that down, jot it down, look at it for yourself, and keep track of it so that you're not so that you don't lose your spot when you do all this. Now, we're going to go to part 2, which is the financial foundation system. I want you to track now this is not me wanting you to. I want you to succeed. I want you to have all of your wildest dreams come true. But in order for this to work for you, I find that you have to track your equipment costs, take note of your ongoing costs, and then consider your hidden costs. I can't make you do it this way, but this is how I've done it that has been successful for me. So a lot of times people will think about the revenue that's coming in, but they don't think about the costs, the ongoing costs, and I want you to take note of all that. So in your equipment costs, you have some one-time costs, and I'm not a cost accountant. I'm not a I don't know a lot of the cost basis accounting and this and that, and consult your accountant if you want to do that further, or just look into that from a costing perspective. But this is enough for me. This has been enough for me to decide how to price things and what things cost. So my equipment costs include grow lights. Grow lights can be uh, as cheap as $10 per shelf up to $70 or $80 per shelf. I will tell you that grow lights, if you are only starting seedlings and you're not growing any unique plant categories, and you're not growing plants to the fruiting or flowering stage, you don't need a full spectrum grow light. All you need is a grow light that covers the spectrums that are needed for just germination and the plants to get up big enough that they can be hardened off and sold. So my husband, several years back, about 5 years ago for my birthday, was such a sweetheart, and he bought me a Mars Hydro full spectrum grow light. This baby is a hoss. It's like, I don't know how many 100 watts this bulb is. It's overkill for what I do now, but that first year I was experimenting. I had all kinds of little tomato plants I was growing inside, and it was super fun. But it's overkill for what you and I are doing here. So all you need is a basic LED, LED grow lights. LED doesn't get super hot. They don't use a lot of electricity. They are personally my choice. I would get LED shop lights, and like a multi-pack you can do. I put 3 of them per shelf, and then however many shelves you have. You For your racks, for your grow light racks, here are 2 calculations I want you to remember, and one of them is 24 inches, and the other is at least 60 inches. So we'll get to seed starting in a minute, but what I want to show you here is these are the trays that I these are the trays that I start seeds in. This is the bottom tray. Okay, this is from Bootstrap Farmer. I've had these for years and they're in great shape. They're very thick. They stand up very well. If you can afford a thicker tray like these that last year after year for your seed starting, then it really makes the cost of this very, very cheap over the number of years that you use it. This is an insert that has 128. This is a 128 cell tray. Now this tray, both of these are referred to as 1020 trays. And the reason that they're called 1020 trays is because they are 10 inches deep and 20 inches long. So when you put these under a grow light on a shelf, this is the best way to do this for you, that's going to give you the most seedlings per space under your grow lights, is if you slide them in this way. You slide them in so that this 20 inches goes into the depth of your shelving unit. So if you have a 24-inch deep shelving unit and this is 20 inches long, then when you put your 3 grow lights on top, every single seedling in this tray is going to have light where you want it. If you don't do that, and I made the mistake of not paying attention to the depth measurement. So they're either 18 or 20 inches deep. And so what happens is when I'm trying to cram seedlings in as much as I can for selling, then what happens is that the ones on either end, like here or here, they are not directly under a light because my shelves aren't deep enough. So when you're looking, like if I had my druthers, if I had it to do over again, I would pick 24 inches deep, and then I would also do at least 50 inches, probably at least 60 inches. 60 inches long is a very popular length for shelving units. 60 inches long gets you 6 of these. because this measurement's 10 inches across. So you can fit 10 across one shelf of one of these. So if this is 128 cell tray times 6, that's the number of seedlings you can fit under there. It's close to 700. It's around 700 per shelf. That's a lot of seedling room under a single shelf. So honestly, what I would recommend, if you just want to have one seedling shelf where you germinate your seeds or you grow them big enough to be potted up, I would recommend a 5 shelf 60 or 72-inch long, 24-inch deep rack. And you can get those right now. I think they're around like $172, 200 maybe. Then your LED lights, I would do 3 lights per level, just so that you've got enough light hitting your seedlings. So if you're doing 3 per shelf and you have 4, because you'll have 4 racks of growing space if you have a 5-shelf system. So 4 times 3, that's about 12 LED lights. And you want to make sure they are the same width as your shelving system. So you might find a situation where what's really frustrating is if you go with a 4-foot wide shelving unit, like I did, that's 48 inches, and you almost can fit 5 across, but not quite, because it's not quite 50 inches. And then you have all the space that you could use, and it's almost the size of a tray. So it's frustrating. So that's what I would say for you. That's my pro tip: is do a 5-shelf, 72-inch wide, but at least 60-inch wide and 24 inches deep. If you're going to go for any measurement, go for 24 inches deep. It is going to save you lots of. It's just giving you the biggest. You're maximizing your space the best way when you do it that way. So we're looking at that. Grow lights, seed starting trays. You can get super cheap seed starting trays. Because I'm not in the cases where I'm not selling them or giving them away, I am springing for Bootstrap Farmer because they just last longer. And my cost, I mean, this setup here is maybe $5 together, and I've had it for 5 years. So $1 a year across however many seedlings, it almost becomes like not even worth capturing, but a very, very small amount of money that you have to allocate per seedling, because they're so hardy and they're so robust that you can use them for years. If you're selling flats of lettuce or collards, for example, and you're selling the whole flat, I'll do this for asparagus seedlings. I'll do this for lettuce. Or if you're selling a fancy, like an herb garden, pizza garden, tea garden, where you have 6 packs of different things and you are selling this bottom tray, get a cheap bottom tray that's like maybe $1 a piece. Don't spring for these. Don't give those away. Give a cheaper one to your customers, and then they can do whatever they need to with that. So just think about it, right? That's all I'm saying, is to think about it. Your soil and your amendments, you're going to want to get as good a deal as possible on that, and that typically means buying in bulk, whatever you can afford. For that year. I don't recommend, it's really easiest for me to think about this in terms of just what can you use in a year. So just take a stab at it. Once you have your first year under your belt, you'll know. But I get slings of soil from a place called Dirt Craft Organics because I grow food in a large scale over at the other garden. But I do have, so like my soil is maybe it's $1 for me to consider for an entire tray. But you just have to find it as cheap as you can. Your containers for selling. What I will say to this is Greenhouse Megastore is a great place to get potting, little cups to pot up into. So is Bootstrap Farmer. If I'm potting up into like a 2.5 by 2.5 inch square, if I'm potting up for my own use, I will use the Bootstrap Farmer because they're thicker and they last multiple seasons. If I'm potting them up to give to my customers and let them have them, I am using some that are less expensive. But Greenhouse Megastore is a great place to find that stuff. I always recommend, another pro tip is to use a square container, because what you're going to be doing, so you've got, let's say that this is a real world example for you. You have this 128 cell tray, and this is going to be, and you've got one rack of seedlings like we talked about. We did one rack for grow lights, and you've got 128 here, and you say, okay, great. My customers want early girl, they like sweet 100, and they like Cherokee purple for the heirloom. Okay, we're going to grow those three, and we're going to grow 40 seedlings of each. When it comes time for you to pot those up, you have to find a place. You have to pot those up into bigger containers so that they can keep growing. They will last 3 weeks tops in these little guys. And I mean tops, because they're really little. As a matter of fact, I think I lied. This is a 200 cell tray. I use this for lettuce. The 128 cell trays are a little bit bigger. They will last in those for 3 weeks. But after that, your tomatoes will suffer if you don't pot them up. Now, depending on how you do it, it's your business. You do it however you want, and you're going to find your way. This is a 50 cell tray. So you'll take, if we wanted to do 40 of each of those three varieties we talked about, then you're going to say, all right, here's one 50 cell tray, and I'll take two more 50 cell trays, and I will pot up this whole tray here into 3 pots. And those are going to grow for a while. Okay, they're going to grow for quite a while. But you see what happened. Instead of just having one tray under your grow lights, now you have 3 trays under your grow lights. And that is how this kind of thing happens. This is how it works. So you have to think about, what kind of space do I have? What kind of space do I need? And then if you want to grow, you can just reinvest your money into the business as you make money. But to start out, you just have to make sure you're doing this really in a cost-effective way. Basic tools, you probably already have most of the basic tools that you need, but this is what you want to think about for your equipment costs. Now, your ongoing costs are electricity for grow lights, your seeds. You're gonna purchase those on a seasonal basis, but you're gonna need to think of those. Your soil replenishment, replacement containers, and any of your marketing and sales costs. So marketing and sales costs can be pretty cheap to begin with. Especially if you're advertising on Facebook Marketplace. Maybe you want to boost a few posts here and there, but you can keep it relatively cheap. If you do pop-up markets, or you do have a farmer's market table, I'm no expert at that, but you can go into lots of different videos to check out what's the most cost-effective way to set up a farmer's market table. So that would be included under marketing and sales costs. And then think about your hidden costs. Your labor. I incorporate my labor into the cost of my seedlings. Some people don't do that. I've talked to people and they've thought, well, I don't feel comfortable counting my labor as a cost because I'm home with my kids and this is just an extra thing that I'm doing. I still would urge you to assign your time a dollar value and keep track of it, because what you track, you can improve. And if you're not keeping track of it, you're not going to be able to scale your business without chaos. And we'll talk about that later. So those hidden costs, like I said, include your time, transportation to markets, insurance, any of those business licenses we talked about in the first step, and equipment maintenance. Now, again, a lot of this is going to be stuff you don't know yet, but you'll figure that out. And I will show you also later at the end, I'll show you the worksheet tab where we talk about startup costs. You have a startup cost calculator. There are some monthly operating costs and things like that that you can keep track of. Here's your startup cost calculator, the equipment, your grow light costs, trays and containers, soils and amendments, and the tools. Then you've got a total startup cost that's really kind of a one and done, or maybe once a year cost. And then your monthly operating cost, electricity, seed, soil, gas, insurance, whatever the situation is for you. Now, the fun part is this next part, which is hold on, let me go back. I wanted to talk about something here. Space assessment and optimization. I should have changed my tab, but I didn't. Your grow light optimization. My dad told me an amazing story, and I know that a lot of English gardeners do this. They will broadcast a bunch of seeds into an open flat, and I've done that for my onions before. So they will throw the seeds into basically, you know, if you didn't have anything else, you could use this tray, fill it full of your seedling mix, and then scatter all of your seeds out on this tray, cover them up, and then tend to them that way. And then you would pick them out, and then you could pot them up when those seeds germinated. And that's a really good way to do it if you are using old seed and you don't know if it's going to germinate very well. You could throw a bunch of it in there, and then whatever germinates, hallelujah, you will pot that up. But this way you're not wasting space without knowing. And so my dad has told me this great story from back when he was a kid. So he was born in the late 40s in rural North Carolina. And when he was a kid, the way they sold, they always bought their tomato plants. And the way that they were sold when he was a kid was a person had them broadcast. They had them in a big tray and had thrown the seed in there, and they were seedlings at that point. And this fellow had pieces of newspaper, like wet newspaper, and he would, if you wanted a seedling, you'd say, okay, I want, let's say they're $1 a piece, or probably not even that much back then. Let's say they were 50 cents or a quarter even. You'd buy 10 seedlings for a quarter. He would take your 10 seedlings, he would pull them up out of the soil, put them in that wet newspaper, wrap them up, maybe put them in a plastic bag, and there you go. That was how they were. That's how they were sold back then, back in the day. So um, you can do it that way if you want, right? Like you can make biodegradable seedling pots out of newspaper. So this example was to show you can do anything you want. And here's your pro tip again: get shelving that's 24 inches deep and at least 60 inches across. That's going to be able to you're going to be able to optimize your space under your grow lights. So the next thing we want to talk about, the next pillar, is your profit projection. We're going to discuss the way we're going to do that in the spreadsheet is we're going to look at your plants per season estimate. You're going to think about all the things you want to grow, all the grow light space you have, all the hardening off space you have. You're going to say how many plants per seedling, or plants per season do I estimate that I could grow? How many would I like to sell? So then your average price per plant, and then you're just going to multiply those two to get your revenue potential. After that, you'll take all your costs from that dollar figure, and that is what you're working with for your revenue. So that's how it is so exciting to look at all of these things. Like it's really exciting to look at how you can work this out. Now, the next step we're looking at after we've looked at true costs, we've covered legal compliance. Now we're looking at your physical setup. Will your space support your plans? And this is where we'll go through the planner. I'll show it to you. But this is where I want you to assess your space. This is where all of that savvy that you did, all of those great decisions you made when you bought the racks and you bought your grow lights, you probably can be all in there for maybe around $300, maybe $300 to $400 with all the lights, all the racks. So you're going to assess you're going to assess your space. So, however, the number of trays you can fit on each shelf divided by the number of or multiplied by the number of shelves is going to give you the number of plants you can start. Then you have to look at your hardening off space. So, hardening off is when you're taking the plants outside, you're bringing them back in. You can decide whether or not to do this. If you are really, really low on space, you can decide to not harden them off, sell them for a little less expensive price, and tell your customers, look, you're going to have to harden these off yourself. These have not been hardened off. That's your choice. I don't do that with mine. I do make sure that my plants are hardened off because I find that my customers are more successful that way, and they come back. If they buy something from you and it dies, they weren't paying attention when you just have to really make sure they know that these have not been hardened off. But that could be a winner for you. Like if you've only got space for the grow rack, but you can't harden off everything you grow, then maybe you grow them at a discount or sell them at a discount and don't harden them off. But whatever you do, you have to calculate the number of plants that you have, that you've grown, that you've potted up. I recommend that you use a 2.5-inch square pot. disposable, keep it, whatever you want to do. But those 2.5 square inches, that's going to be the size for each seedling. So then you're going to calculate, okay, how much room, how much space do I need in my basement or my garage or my otherwise protected area? Like, how much do I need to have in order to effectively harden off? You've got to have a place for all those to go out in the day, and you've got to have a place to bring them all in at night. This is primarily for your spring crops. If you're doing fall seedlings, it's less important. Your fall seedlings are a little bit more robust because they can take freezes, and so I don't find that I have to harden them off much, if at all, to be honest. So again, this is for your spring seedlings that you'll want to look into this. And so if you want to grow 100 plants per season, which seems like a really good place to start, then you're going to want to have room to harden those off. And you probably will be carrying them in and out in this type of tray. So just calculate, the number of these guys. I think at one point I had this calculated. I believe you can fit 13 or 15 seedlings per tray. So it went from a tray that will hold 200 seedlings when they first germinate to a tray that when you're toting it back in and out, there's like 13 to 15 seedlings per tray. So that's kind of how you can do the math. So let's say if I can fit 15 seedlings in each of these bottoms, and I need to harden them off for a week before I sell them. And if I want to sell, 100 to start with, then I'll need at least 6 or 7 bottom trays. I'll need to buy those for the purposes of hardening off, and I'll need space to put them like in the floor in the basement that doesn't freeze at night, and then in the morning you put them out. So that's kind of how you're going to calculate the space you need to harden off. That is by far the bottleneck that I've always seen, is the scaling. The next tab is your space assessment. You're going to do a review of your grow light coverage and the number of trays that you can fit, and that's going to dictate the number of plants you can germinate, which will dictate what you can sell. So also you want to be able to handle that a number of seedlings in the space that you have to harden it off. So whatever available space in the number of trays or square feet, however many plants you can handle, that's what you can harden off at any given time. Now, you'll want to think about where you're going to store your soil and whatnot. You're going to store store soil, and you're going to have supplies and equipment for that. So just think about where that's going to go. And then finally, the last pillar we want to talk about are your business systems. How can we scale without chaos? And these are the types of things that I'm going to show you in the planner really quick here at the end of the video. But we're looking at simple systems that are going to prevent chaos for you. These are basically 3 systems. The first is a record-keeping system. You want to be able to track all of your expenses. You want to also be able to track your sales, keep your customer information, and your inventory management. So you want to know, what am I spending? What am I selling? Who am I selling it to? And how much do I have to sell? Those are the basic things. And you can use a basic spreadsheet for this. It doesn't have to be fancy. Your time management, you do want to time yourself on your daily tasks, and then you can that way take your cost that it takes per seedling, right? Like if it costs, let's say it takes you 10 minutes to seed a tray of tomatoes, then you can take that time and say, well, it takes me a certain number of minutes or seconds for each seedling, because you can take the total time and divide it by the number of seedlings, then times it by your labor rate, and then you'll know per seedling what it's going to cost. That's something that I do think, like I said earlier, I think you should track that just for your own good. So the next thing, like I said, daily tasks, your weekly planning, seasonal calendar, like how are you going to decide when to plant things? How are you going to decide like when you need to buy your seeds? You just need to have a way of doing that. And then your quality control, you want to have a way to track your customer satisfaction. You want to ask them. You can always use a Google form after the sale, ask them if they were satisfied, give them the opportunity to give you feedback. Then your business tracking templates. You can keep track of your expenses, your weekly sales, your customer contacts, and your plant inventory. Just decide how you want to keep track of any of that. And that's it. So you're really on your way with a tracker like this. And yeah, you're just going to click the link below and you'll be able to access that. If you just pop your email address in, it will be yours for free, and then you can start using your business planner. So yeah, wow, that's okay. That's really quick. That's not even 5 minutes. So I want you to think about this, have a fresh perspective. Don't get nervous about it. Um, Tell me in your comments which of these might be a challenge for you. Let me know how what steps you're taking, and if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. What you've built here with me, you have created your legal compliance tracker, your financial planning system, your space guide, and the basic businesses. So the basic business systems. Now, you're going to take a look at all this. I want you to take a stab at your legal research and requirements, fill out your space assessment, play around with your startup costs, see what your revenue could be, and you're going to be able to see exactly how easily and how methodically this can come together for you once you know all of those things. But the legal and compliance was the biggest. It's always the scariest part. It doesn't have to be, but that is the way it has worked. And I want you to drop a comment if you get started after you watch this video, if you've gotten started with it. Thank you guys so much. As always, I know you could be anywhere and you chose to spend this time with me, and I really appreciate it. Bye for now, and please come back for the next video where we talk about how to plan out your spring seedlings for yourself. Thanks a lot. Bye for now. Okay, so here we see, can I sell seedlings from my home in South Carolina? This is exactly what I just typed in. And this is where I usually the AI overviews kind of like bother me because I don't find them useful. But here in this particular case, I have done some research for different states, and this is actually beneficial. When you see the AI overview, you will understand what I mean. So AI is pulling in all of this information and saying, oh, yes, you can sell seedlings from your home, but you may need to register as a nursery depending on the size of your operation and what you sell. And so then it gives you a list of things to um, go through and to check. And so I want you to check all of these. Now that you're not just relying on AI to tell you what to do, but it does give you some information on how to do this. And you're going to go to South Carolina Code of Laws, click on that, and it's going to talk about um, all of the rules that apply here. You're just going to read all of this to find out what applies to you and what does not. Um, and usually, um, let's see, nursery dealer locations, for example, here we go. If you're considered a nursery, so these are different fees that you'll have to pay. Let's say a nursery dealer location with sales of 10,000 or less pays nothing. Nursery dealers who make 10,000 to 100,000 pay $50. So just because someone requires you to have a nursery permit or some sort of license or whatnot doesn't mean that it's a huge cost. And so I would look through here, do your research, start with Google, then go to your extension office in your county and ask those folks who work there because they would love to help you out. So we've got lots of things. So Clemson has a school here. So what you want to do is for your state, like in this case, in this case, I'm looking for South Carolina. Can I sell seedlings from my home in South Carolina? How to start a plant nursery business at home? Like there's all kinds of things that you can look at to um, to tell. So can I sell? How about we say, can I sell vegetable? I'm pecking around with one hand here. Sorry, guys. Um, okay. In South Carolina, you can sell vegetable seedlings from your home, but you may need to comply with certain regulations. While there are no specific licensing requirements for selling produce from your home, they may require you to be inspected and certified as a nursery. So You just need to look through all of those requirements for your state, and then you're going to go through any kind of business license stuff that you need for your location, in terms of your city, your town, or your county. So just um, yeah, just take a look at it. There are different sections here, and again, like I said, this is really where AI can be very beneficial to you. I don't typically like it, but in this case, it is summarizing all of those things that are kind of, there's a lot of verbiage to it, and it could be very helpful. So that's that. Take a look.